Welcome back everyone to Gacha Interact. Today marks the first day where we're going to be starting to do content in a little bit of a different format with the GachaCast idea. Now the GachaCast includes but is not limited to pre-releases, games, and news for the different gachas that we cover. It's also going to talk about speculations, everything that we used to do in videos, but is going to now be condensed into one single video for you guys to have throughout the week. Now, also looking forward into the next few things we're going to be taking a look at. The first thing that we're going to be jumping into this week is going to be talking about, obviously, Genshin Impact, our major game that we cover, and Rift first jumping into the brand new Abyss that has just dropped. So going over and taking a quick look at that brand new Abyss, we have some interesting things with some of the bosses that we're going through as well. Now, we do also have like some of the blessings that kind of happened as well. So looking at the top here, when a character does some cryo damage, it's going to create some shock waves. When you get to like a certain count of that, that's going to be some true damage. It's very interesting Abyss. And when you go to actually choose your characters and whatnot, you're going to have like the different ley line disorders that are going to happen. So you have like when characters have 0 energy, your damage is going to be increased, the normal attack cryo damage increase. And honestly, it can pretty much easily be seen with that as well with kind of the bosses that we're fighting. The first half is really meant for Mawika, and the second half is really meant for Skirk. And you can kind of see that by a lot of the cryo being seen, or the necessity of need of pyro in the first half of the chambers. And then the second half, you see a lot more of just kind of regular enemies and even some Electro enemies with shields for the necessity of some extra cryo desire. So very interesting.
Cryo's going to do really good on those, like the Electro Shield, the Seahorse.
Oh, yeah.
Like Cryo just does really good against Electro. So you can definitely see that. And then you have that Secret Source Automaton, that very last boss in the second half, which is the new overworld boss that wants just a bunch of the frozen reaction or just cryo attacks in general to kind of stop it from doing its thing. So like obviously if you have those Escoffier teams, like yeah, it's pushing for Skirk here obviously, but definitely if you have just like Risley, Ayaka, Ganyu, and you're using them with like Farina, Escoffier, then it's gonna still do the job there. And then yeah, like you said, first half definitely pushing for Mawika because you can see the need for pyro like you stated, but also with that first half leyline disorder, saying that when characters have 0 energy, your damage is just increased by 75%. And I think you told me this, Vixen, earlier, that when you first saw that, you're like, oh, there's the Skirk thing. They're pushing for Skirk with the new Abyss. But then you see it's actually for the second half that they're actually wanting you to use Skirk. And so the first half is inadvertently saying, by the way, you also need Mawika again. And so it's just another situation where we need Mawika. And so it's just crazy. But
it's going to be a little bit
obviously if you have
scary
Arlecchino, like I know you'll probably maybe try Arlecchino. I know you have like C2 Arlecchino, so that'll be a lot of fun.
I don't know. At first, I mean, if I didn't have like Skirk or was going after Skirk, I definitely would be thinking of putting Skirk possibly on the second half still, in the first half just using another Pyro DPS, which can still definitely work. A lot of this is just an overabundance of Pyros and kind of the need here. But yeah, I mean, thankfully, it's not too crazy. They are just, the Abyss, the leyline disorders, so they just give you some extra, helps you out more. It's not to say that it can't be done outside of it, but it's just obviously makes your life a lot easier. So, I mean, that's just kind of the new Abyss. It's nothing crazy, thankfully, nothing that's absolutely, like, super restrictive. It looks like it's just like a lot of pyro, and then second half's a lot of cryo.
That's my thoughts exactly. I was even looking at this thinking, I think Hu Tao could even do this just because it looks so single target in first half. Like she really shouldn't have a problem either.
Yeah,
but
the only issue is going to be the Spirit Seeker. That would be my
because you need like a lot of pyro. It may have to be a Hu Tao team that still has Bennett just because of the constant pyro for those shields. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I'd be interested to see what people do with coming there. But in terms of like teams in general, like, once again, I mean, this is just meant for Cryo second half, and especially because of Chamber 3. So keep that in mind as you guys are kind of going through it. Make sure you guys have that freeze team set up for the second half. And then also, first half, it's just meant heavily for Pyro. You have Capellius, you have the Yumkasor that wants Pyro to kind of explode those like things in his face. And then also a Spirit Speaker as well, just wanting a lot of pyro. So that's kind of how the Abyss looks right now. Nothing really crazy, nothing too sinister.
Do those in-game prices have you down? Well, don't worry, Lootbar has your back. Lootbar is the go-to top-up service for many gamers around the world. You can enjoy instant delivery within just minutes of your purchase, if not even seconds, a secure transaction which is 100% safe, and part of that is because they don't require emails or passwords. All they need for, let's just say, Genshin Impact is your UID. And they don't just cover Genshin Impact, but many other games, as you can see here on my screen. You can do Honkai Star Rail, Endless Zone Zero, Wuthering Waves, and just many other games. And the best part of all this is that new users get 10% off their first purchase. Click the link down in the description or pinned comment to start saving today. Now, let's get back to the content.
But in terms of like endgame in general, kind of going back to our what we've been normally getting with, I guess, the game, we've had the Imaginarium Theater. And the interesting thing with the Imaginarium Theater is it's been, or the last one, obviously, considering we're still in it, had some interesting lineup of elements here. That's for sure.
It really
Electro,
did.
Cryo, and
We're
Dendro.
talking with people in our Discord about it because, I mean, yeah, Electro, Cryo, Dendro, it's just a weird interaction between picking those three elements, because when you look at the reactions you can get out of that, one of the only valuable ones, remotely valuable, if that makes sense, is going to be that Electro and Dendro for the aggravate, the quicken, spread stuff, because any other way you look at it, it's kind of copium, or it's just straight up not a reaction. Like Cryo and Dendro don't react, and we'll get into some stuff here in a minute. That's pretty exciting, actually, though. But then you've got that Superconduct as another one of those combinations, and that's just going to be your physical stuff, which is just, once again, okay, like, sure. Yeah, if you have Eula, then great. Fremine could barely do it, maybe. It's just, I don't know, it's just weird. Like, it's a very weird three elements to put together. But because of it,
yeah.
Vixen, I really like one of those new buffs that they put into Imaginarium Theater specifically. And you only find this in the theater, and that's those really cool buffs and things they like to add to, like, it maybe in like previous Imaginarium Theaters, we've seen things that you can pick those buffs when you get the 3 or 4 options for maybe, like, if it's like Hydro, Pyro, oh, here's increased vaporized damage, or if it's another thing, it's
Right.
a buff to that. And this one is really cool because we got the Cryo and Dendro specific
which
buffs
is
where you
technically
actually
new.
want to use. I know, right? And it's like, when I was doing this, I was like, wait a minute, I actually want to use a Dendro character with my Cryo character, or if I was doing a Dendro team for like Tainari or Alhaitham even, if you're doing that spread team, you actually are encouraged to use a Cryo character in there. Like, if you don't throw
Right,
Layla in there, if
yeah.
you don't throw Charlotte in there, you're actually losing DPS, which is just really cool,
yeah,
because
you
like
don't
you
necessarily
totally don't
think
do
of.
that.
Yeah,
I know,
it's
right?
just a weird like Imaginarium Theater, and we'll kind of see a little bit more how they kind of change things in the future by maybe adding other elements. Because I remember in the past we had thought they were adding new reactions, but this
Right.
was purely just grabbed from just an idea from the Imaginarium Theater, which is another thing that I like about the Imaginarium Theater. It kind of does some fun,
It's like a
crazy,
whole different
wacky
game now.
things that they can kind of do without actually implementing it into the actual game, or they could be kind of test writing things in the Imaginarium Theater to see how that would work in game
That's
as well.
what my thought was too. Like, oh, maybe they're just trying to play test something to be able to implement it later in the game. Because who knows? There's going to be new mechanics, right? With Nod Cry, there have always been something new. Like with Fontaine, it was the Numa Usia. Natlin had the Phlogiston stuff. For Sumeru, I guess it was just like, hey, here's a new element. Like that's enough for gameplay change. That was huge. And maybe for Nod Cry, it might be something like that, a new reaction, and that's like a sneak peek into that. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
We'll kind of know where everything kind of is going, I guess, after this, and in the past, actually, we saw, this specific idea of that reaction kind of almost happening. And we thought it was actually going to be in the game, but it was just them kind of getting ready for this Imaginarium Theater. So maybe that allows
Right.
for
Yeah.
maybe future cool, reactions in Imaginarium Theater. But this also could mean that they're testing things out for the actual game. So there's a lot of cool,
Right.
interesting things that this hopefully could mean for us, I guess, as well.
Yeah, because like with each region, we've always gotten a major gameplay mechanic added, right? So with Sumeru, it was just, hey, here's Dendro. That's a whole new thing to play around with. That was huge, right? And then Fontaine, we got the Numa Usia thing. It's not a massive game changer, but it is something to like you can have fun with and work around and stuff. That's that thing. And then Natlin had the Phlogiston stuff. And so the question would be is what's Nod Cry's addition going to include? And that could be the area that they actually do add a new elemental reaction just altogether. And it may be that like the Dendro Cryo thing, and that's why we see it here in this current Imaginarium theater. They're trying to test it out, see how they can have the interactions work out with actual playtesting here.
Yeah.
And it's like a weird inadvertent beta where everyone's actually taking part, and who knows.
It's
They've
either
got,
that
like,
or
spies
void
looking out
energy,
on
you
it or
know?
something.
We could get a new
Yeah,
reaction
like,
or a
oh
new
yeah, like the
element,
abyssal
so
element, like
yeah.
new element would be cool, an eighth element. But and who's to say like
We'll have no clue about that one, though.
this new reaction, that could be Cryodendro, but what if it's like something else? And this is like to divert our attention. What if they actually do have like another geo reaction in the works that's something that's actually more useful than crystallize? Because I mean, we've all
More
at this
useful than
point, if we've
crystallize?
been
Crazy.
playing Genshin for years now, we've heard many people have really cool ideas with like different reactions. Like Geo Pyro could be like some lava kind of reaction or something. You've heard like Dendro and Geo could be like some tree thing, or I don't know, wood. Or, you hear all these things and they're like, oh, that's like that sounds really cool. But like how the question is like how would they actually implement that? Because it's like you think about it and it's like, oh, that sounds cool. They should do it. And it's like, well, it could be more than just doing it. Like it's like how it works and how it interacts with actual enemies, characters with other characters. It could be harder than it seems, but this makes me excited nonetheless. I can't wait for Nod Cry in general, but to know what that specific new gameplay mechanic would be just really fun.
It would definitely have something new to bring to the game. And speaking of new bringing to the game, we have kind of something interesting a little bit on our end, which is, you were telling me about Traveler's Tale as a Gilded chapter, and
Oh yeah,
you were
yeah.
talking about some interesting things that, in the past we had Mondstadt, Liyue, and Izuma as kind of characters we could go
Right.
around the world and kind of see and talk to players. And I actually had forgot about it, but or characters.
Yeah, there were like those up to 40 different anecdotes stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, so now, they're talking about that again, and you said you saw characters like, Phainon and Neuvillette, so seeing more like Sumeru and Fontaine,
That's my thought, at
maybe
least. I'm
some
thinking.
interesting idea between that, some extra
Yeah,
characters.
yeah, like it. I know a lot of people, especially like more casual people or people that are more into the exploration side of things. It was really cool to like just like bump into another character of the cast, be like, hey, oh, what's Kazuha doing here? I know that was me with Kazuha. Like I was just in Liyue and Kazuha was there. I'm like, hey, that's Kazuha. What's he doing up on this mountain? And it was really cool. It's fun to see those new interactions because at the same time, you always wonder like what are the characters actually doing instead of just being in the same spot at one time.
Right.
And
Waiting for a quest to
something
happen.
like this, at least with that Mondstadt Liyue thing, kind of added some immersion to just the game and just kind of bumping into the characters and seeing what they're up to. It was just I
Yeah.
don't know, it was just fun. I liked it at least, and I know other people did. It may not be the meta people's favorite thing, and that's understandable because it's not combat gameplay. But at the same time,
It brings
this
the
was really
life
cool.
to the
And
game.
so
Yeah.
I can't wait. Yeah, I can't wait to just be going through the desert because believe it or not, guys, I haven't finished my desert. I'm not even close to 100%. I'm like it's bad. Okay, it's bad, guys. We won't even go there. But the point is, when I go around to do that, if I bump into Sethos, if I bump into Sino, that'd be really cool in the desert. Hey, bumping into Neuvillette and somewhere like that would be cool. Okay. And so I know there's a lot of people that
Hey,
enjoy that kind of thing.
I think that there will be. It's once again just allows the game to be a little bit more kind of figuring stuff out. But something else that's new and interesting. We have recently just gotten the brand new banners that are coming out. That have come out at this
Yeah.
point of actually
that
you
was, like,
guys seeing this video.
yesterday,
For
last
us, it
night, I
basically
think.
pretty much just came out. And that is the brand new banners for the Skirk banner. Now, we've already done a Deploy Not Deploy going over and looking at the characters, so we will not take this time to do Skirk and Shenhe. Should you pull, that's a separate video. If you guys want to watch that video, go ahead and take a look at our channel and go ahead and do that. If one of us is editing this, it'll be in one of the top corners for you to go ahead and watch. But the biggest thing here is we got the 4 stars. Yeah,
And there's
it's a
just
little
no.
rough. I'm not gonna say.
No.
I'm not gonna
All right,
lie.
what's the next thing on the list, anyways?
Yeah, literally. The thing here is we have the 4 stars are Diona, Candace, and Dahlia. So Dahlia is kind of cool. We got brand new 4-star, and I know Rift, you're probably happy about that the most, considering you can. Mr. 4-star King over here is going to build every single character. But I mean,
Like the first time
they're
I actually
really
don't know what
making
I'm
this
gonna do
hard
with.
to actually pull on this banner. They didn't throw
They are,
Xingqiu in
and
here. They didn't throw Layla. They didn't throw
yeah,
some really solid
the
four
good
stars.
ones.
Not to say once again
Yeah.
that Diona and Candace are terrible, just not
Well,
fantastic.
yeah,
But yeah, it's not necessarily the overload banner with Raiden or something like that we've seen in the
yeah,
past, where it's a
yeah.
star-studded cast. Same thing with Varessa actually recently, you know. And I know we were talking about
Hmm.
this, and you were talking about how well Candace has a normal attack, damage bonus, which Skirk mainly focuses on. Dahlia, obviously the attack speed,
Uh-huh.
and he'll be a good free-to-play character. And Diona is shielder and
Right.
healer, keeping the double hydro, double cryo together, kind of type of thing. But
Like, yeah, you
um,
technically have the full team right there. It's like your ultimate budget team. It's like if you're completely new
it
to
is
the game and
ultimate
you
budget.
are
Yep.
getting Skirk, you kind of hope you get at least one copy of each of these. So you at
Mm-hmm.
least have something to work with while you're getting the characters you actually want. While you're looking for Farina's next rerun, Escoffier's first rerun, stuff like that. So, and the thing is, they can get away with this, right? Because it's Skirk, okay?
Right.
Like, oh, we got this new, really cool character. Let's throw the garbage 4 stars in there that need the reruns so that we can get them out of the way. And so honestly, this is the
Surprised I
banner
didn't
to
see
do it
Mika
on.
in here. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm
Probably, honestly, my thought for that is probably just because Dahlia. I don't know, because like that
maybe
would be a double
yeah.
whammy on the attack speed.
I mean, that'd
But
be just kind of funny if they threw both those two characters together,
yeah,
and
it
just
would
kind of
be.
see what would happen. But yeah, I mean, it's once again, it's interesting. The 4 stars are not fantastic on this one. I'm gonna hope that I can get Skirk as fast as physically possible. I do want one copy of Dahlia so I can test him out. I've heard that he is
Hmm.
still good enough to an extent, but I do want to play around myself, kind of actually get some real answers, kind of behind my own feeling of the characters, and kind of see how
Right.
restrictive, Skirk actually is, especially with a character that was basically built for her, like Dahlia. But yeah,
Hmm.
interesting stuff, at least with the banners. But beyond that, in a similar fashion with banners, we're coming out
More
of
banner stuff.
5.6 right now. And with
Right.
5.6, we had a very fast Chronicled Wish, and I don't mean time-wise, like it was here for a short period of time. I mean that recently we had the previous Leeway Chronicled Wish, and now we have a totally different set of things, which is now a Inazuma Chronicled Wish, only a couple months later. So my thought process
Right.
is, well, we were talking about this. What does this mean for a future Chronicled Wish? When is it going to happen? Who's going to be on it? What is it going to be? Is Sumeru now going to have its Chronicled Wish a lot quicker? And this also, brought up to my mind as well, like Shenhe was in that Leeway Chronicled Wish not too long ago, and a lot of
Hmm.
people figured as soon as you get into a Chronicled Wish, it's kind of like your standard at that point. You don't need to run on banners anymore. But
Right.
now we
Like
see
it wouldn't
Shenhe
be
here.
till the next Chronicled Wish, right? Is that like what
Exactly
you're saying?
right. You
Like,
just wait
yeah,
forever
like
until your
now we're
next
not going to
one.
see Kokomi until the next year in the next
But
Chronicled Wish
now
because
Shenhe has shown up in an actual
right.
banner outside of the Chronicled Wish. So, that kind of also tosses out that idea, at least for what they would do. So there's some interesting things. So I guess the idea of a Sumeru Chronicled Wish, I guess the question would be, first, probably, when would it occur? If they were going to do it, when would it occur?
Well, like the biggest point is that we had the Leeway Chronicled Wish about the time we expected to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Some were expecting it to be even sooner than when it came out, and some were expecting it to still be even later. So I think it kind of came around the time where, like, okay, yeah, it makes sense. But the Inazuma Chronicled Wish, like, I don't know, like freaking 2 or 3 months later was like, wait, what? Already?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Like I knew Mizuki was like supposed to maybe be that predecessor for that. And funny enough, she wasn't even on that Chronicled Wish. So
Still
that whole
surprising
thing
to
was
this
kind
day.
of like whatever. Yeah, and so because of it, I still don't have Mizuki, which is kind of like I kind of wanted her, and I know she's garbage, but I don't know, her playstyle seemed fun. But my point is like, okay, so that didn't matter, and the
Mm-hmm.
timing was way faster for a lot of us than we thought. Like, in my opinion, I didn't think the Inazuma Chronicled Wish would be here until the very end of Natlan at the earliest, and I thought it was going to be somewhere in early 6.x. That was just my thought, and I know it's some other people's thoughts, and I know obviously some people think it went where they thought it should go too as well. There's not like a
Right.
wrong place for them to go, but because they're coming out so fast, it does make me wonder. It makes one wonder. Okay, not to be like Cloud Retain or anything, But like, is the Sumeru Chronicled Wish going to still be within Natlan, possibly, or will it be at the very beginning of 6.0 or something like that? Because if they
Right.
put it in the beginning of 6.0, oh, everyone's wallet. Oh,
We're
I
screwed.
are, I'm
Yeah.
already feeling bad, like, because we all want
Yeah.
the 6.x characters, right? So the Chronicled Wish would just be like, oh no.
Unless of course you're
But
done
at
with
the same
Sumeru
time,
like I am, which I mean,
yeah, like if you're just done, then it's not a big deal. But like,
right.
at least
For those
me and I
people that
know
have
a
been
lot of
waiting.
other people, we want Tainari's bow. That's a big thing. I think it's Tainari's bow, Hunter's Path, and Beacon of the Reed Sea. Those are
True.
hard to
Yeah.
get weapons that aren't on standard. So I feel like a lot of people, at least a good amount of people, will probably be targeting those things. And really just like the other Sumeru Chronicled characters that
Imagine going
happen to
after
show
Beacon
up
of the
on
Reed
that.
Sea and getting pissed off that you got El Haytham's weapon. I just want to point that out there that that's probably going to
It's like,
happen.
dang it, I got Light of Infoliar Incision. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
That's yeah,
Terrible
it's
weapon,
just funny
right?
to think of that like a actual, exclusive, weapon. No, that's the same thing, like you were talking about Hunter's Path and Beacon of the Reed Sea are both exclusive weapons technically, which is so
Mhm.
stupid that they haven't
They're
put
just
those
hard to
on
get.
actual banners yet. But yeah, it's just
Yeah.
weird. If they're gonna do it, I guess the question then becomes who's gonna be on it, because in the past we had like the Mondstadt and Leeway ones. It was like, okay, only 5
It's a
characters or
difficult
6
one.
characters can even be on this.
It's
But
just been getting higher and
it's
higher.
been getting
Like
bigger, yeah.
Mondstadt, we only had like the 4 limited, then Leeway was more. Inazuma was freaking 8 characters. So with Sumeru Chronicled Wish, there's really not a limit to what they could do. They could put every single character on there if they really felt like it. And
True.
who's to say they can't? I feel like definitely Sino would be on there because Sino's just, if we're being
I feel like
honest,
him and Nilu
can
have to
hardly
be on
keep
there.
up. Nilu makes a lot of sense, yeah, because she's so niche. She's still pretty powerful, but it is very niche. There's several other characters I feel like could go on there, of course. I guess for me, it's more or less what are the characters that wouldn't go on there? Like, I would be
I mean,
surprised if they
Nahida, most
made
obviously
it.
because of the
Yeah,
Archon
like Nahida,
decision.
if she's on there, I'd be like, what? Like, no, there's no way.
But I mean, because I'm looking at the 5 stars, at least during the time period of release, and we have Tainari, Nilu, Sino, Nahida, Wanderer, Alhaitham, Dea, and Baiju. And that kind of
Wanderer
brings...
makes a lot of sense.
Wanderer makes sense, Sino makes sense, Nilu makes sense, Alhaitham, possibly. Definitely could.
It's possible.
Dia and Tainari, the question becomes, we didn't have any standards, if I remember correctly, in the Inazuma Chronicled Wish. Will we here? And then obviously Baiju, definitely could. He's been on enough banners, and I think each of these characters has actually been on enough banners to do so. And now that Baiju, I believe, has finally cracked his second or third
Baiju
rerun.
would actually make sense.
Yeah.
Because he's kind of a luxury character. No account really absolutely needs him.
Kinda like a
Is he an
Kokomi.
upgrade? Yes. But kind of like Kokomi, kind of like Shenhe, actually, where there's never like an absolute dire need to have a character like her or
Correct,
Baiju.
yeah.
So I can see them putting Baiju on there. Plus the weapon being very like only good for basically Baiju or maybe
Yeah.
Kokomi. Like that's a good weapon. They'd probably want that to be in the pool to make it a little bit more balanced. So Baiju makes a lot of sense.
I mean, like you said, they could technically slap up every single character up there because that's still only 7 characters. And if I remember correctly,
Right.
they had 6 or so, if not more, or maybe 8 on the
They had
the
8
Inazuma.
in the Inazuma one,
Yeah,
and that was all
so-
limited characters too. Like that, Mizuki
Exactly.
wasn't on that. It was just still, yeah, like you said, that's crazy. Because I
So,
kind of wish she was.
We could see
So-
some more Sumeru characters, and if I remember correctly, there haven't been any other Sumeru-based characters, like from Sumeru. If we kind
Yeah,
of
like
look
I
at
think
other
Baiju
characters.
really was the last one because going through Fontaine, the only non-Fontaine characters, Shanyun, that's Liyue, Shiori, that's Inazuma, and that's kind of it. Like the rest of them are pretty much Fontaine characters. Then you go to Natlan, Kanish. Okay, so at this point they're all Natlan characters except for
Yep.
Mizuki, but she wasn't on Inazuma. She's also
Right.
standard.
And Skirk,
and
you could
Escoffier
probably
goes back to
argue as well,
Fontaine.
but
And then Skirk's kind of like Skirk is her own new thing, and that's she's a new character, so that's kind of different. But yeah, like you said, there haven't been any new Sumeru characters really since Baiju.
Right. No,
Looking at
yeah.
limited characters, the 5 stars. So like yeah,
Do
and
they
then
make
with them
it
only
even?
being 7.
Do they knock one character off and just kick, Wanderer to the winds
They
or
totally
something?
could, because that could go back to like the Mondstadt or Leeway size.
Right.
Like maybe the size of the banner doesn't matter.
Maybe, I
Wink,
mean,
wink.
it-
But
but it could also be the idea of like, what about the idea of like, okay, because for instance, right, you had Shenhe. Well, what about Mizuki, for instance? Mizuki probably wasn't on Inazuma Chronicled because she just appeared. Maybe it is timing based. Maybe because
possibly,
I think a lot of
possibly.
people look at the Chronicled like, oh, it has to have a specific reason
Like
for
there's
what
all
they
these
do.
like bullets. Like okay, this is what it's got to fall
Right, it's
within,
got to
and maybe
follow
there's
rule
just
set.
not because it's such a unique thing. There's really not a rule
Exactly.
set at all.
So maybe they'll
So
just throw 6 characters on there, and maybe if Alhaitham is going to have a rerun because that's been in the plans, I'm just choosing him out of characters. Maybe if Alhaitham needs a rerun, maybe they'll just, okay, every other character will put on there with their weapons, but Alhaitham's not because he's going to get a rerun or he just got a rerun. So maybe if we see a
right.
Sumeru character in the future who gets a rerun, maybe we go, okay, this character is not going to be then on, Sumeru Chronicled Wish if they do it soon. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
maybe that's
yeah.
the case.
So like yeah, absolutely not Nihida. I would be very surprised if Tainari and Dia weren't on there. It just
They
if it
have to be,
happened,
in my
it still
opinion.
wouldn't make sense because their weapons have got to be on that. Where else is Hunter's Path and Beacon of the Reed going to go? If they don't
Correct. Yep.
have that on there, which they, like you said, it's got to be there. There's no way, right? There's just no way they're going to do that. How else are people gonna get those weapons? Like, there's like no physical way.
At
And
this point,
the
they'll
Sumeru
become like
Chronicled Wish is why we're looking
Aloy
forward
and
to
her
it.
cons and her weapon. I mean, that's what they're
Yeah, it'd be
literally
like
gonna
it's just
become.
it's completely unobtainable. There's nothing, no amount of money can get you that. Like it's crazy.
Yep.
But so like they have to be on there. Yeah, Sino. So you got Dia, Tainari, Sino, Nilu. Can't do Nahida, Wanderer,
Right.
Alhaitham, Baiju, and yeah, like you said, that's 7. And there's
hmm
we're not forgetting anyone, are we? Like,
Not
are,
not that I
am
know
I going
of, and
crazy
I'm
here?
sure you could be like, okay, well they have a slight connection to Sumeru or something, but I mean, in a general sense, that's just kind of where they are, and that could change.
Yeah.
They could do less, they could do more. Who's to say a brand new Sumeru character doesn't come out at the beginning of 6.x, that we don't know
Right.
about. So there's plenty of different
They could
ideas.
wait. Yeah.
Yeah, that could kind of come out.
What about that new Hydro 5-star girl or whatever that I know has been going around very
Looking at,
vaguely?
there's supposedly also a Hydro character that's supposed to go into
A
Crystallize.
new
I mean, not
electrocharge character as
Electrocharge.
well or something.
And I think that's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
male that they're talking about. So that could be something
Oh,
as
okay,
well.
okay.
Both of those characters could have some capabilities to be either Fontaine characters or Sumeru characters. We haven't seen a Sumeru character in a little while, so
Yeah,
mean,
since
we'll
Baiju,
find out, I guess.
that's a long time. What is that? 3.6 or something?
Yeah, something like that.
But anyways, yeah, no, it's definitely something to keep in mind. It's all speculation, and it's really fun to think about. So I think that's kind of what we think. It's going to be everyone except Nihida. And I think that's
Probably.
actually, like, that's going to be completely fine because maybe some people will think, well, Alhaitham's still too strong to be considered a candidate for a Chronicled Wish because that's just,
Which, and as an
Hoyoverse
main,
would never do that. That's too good. And I'm like, well, honestly,
I'm gonna fight
wh-
people if they say that because I love Alhaitham. I adore this man. All right, I've built him.
yeah, I'll let you do
Tried to
this.
perfect him if I could, but I'm pretty sure they just hate the man because his constellations are dog. They're just terrible. I can't even. But that I'm not here to roast on Alhaitham and his terrible constellations. I think like what you're saying though
Hyperbloom
is
Alhaitham's still okay. It's just that all of these new things we've gotten are so much better. And yeah, at one point
so much
he used to
stronger.
be one of the best DPSs in the game, and when he was new, like there's no doubt about that. It's just that the inflation we've seen since Fontaine up to like just right now is just bonkers. And Alhaitham hasn't really received any treatment to help him get stronger.
The only thing was
or,
the Kuki Hyperbloom.
like
And at
Farina
that
was
point,
like
it's
the
not an
only
Alhaitham
thing.
thing.
Yeah, yeah.
But
So
I mean, once again, we'll see kind of more as time goes on what we're going to see exactly happen with the different characters and see what actually is going to happen with that supposed Chronicled Wish. But that's at least what we have this week for looking at Genshin specific things that have happened in the past week. Now we're going to be taking a look a little bit later into the other game we cover, which is Honkai Star Rail. As you can see by our screen right now, we are looking at the Stellar Convergence. This is just something we've wanted to talk about for a little while, which is looking at kind of the idea of we've had these characters kind of thrown up together for us. So we have their standards, and we also have Locha and Ruan Mei as extra characters that were brought in for the Stellar Convergence. And now we got a lot of stuff during the anniversary event and all that, kind of jazz going on with that. But now that we are a little bit farther in and later on, waiting until we get another one of these, I guess, one of these other points.
Yeah.
We don't know if this is going to be an anniversary thing, like once a year, or this is going to be more consistent. So I guess it's just the same thing as we used to do with the Chronicled Wish. Now we're just looking at this. So looking at this, though, I guess the question then becomes, who, if any, would you bring into the
Oh boy.
the quote unquote Chronicled Wish of Star Rail?
Yeah, like this free select thing. Yeah, I
the
feel
Stellar
like there's
Convergence.
quite maybe not a lot of options, but there's definitely going to be options, right? And when you specifically, I guess, look at old characters, and that's going to also get into another topic we have to talk about later, I guess. But I feel like one of the ones that stands out to me the most initially is going to be Imbibitor Lune. Because
you were gonna
bro
say
was
Zila, and I was
cracked.
gonna be like, please no.
Okay, Zila is another one, but I'll get to that later. Imbibitor Lune was cracked when he came out. Like, he was definitely the best DPS in the game when he released. And he was for a little bit, because after him, I think it was, I think Fujuan was actually in the same patch as him or something like that. Around the same time, we had Jingliu after that, and then Jingliu was definitively the best team with, especially if you had Luocha, you had Blade. That was a crazy good team. And then Topaz came out kind of as an outlier. She didn't really have she wasn't crazy, and she also didn't have a best in team really until all the way later with something like Fei Xiao is where she kind of has her place to shine. And then Huohua Argenti, Ruan Mei, Dr. Ratio is free, and then Penacony. So like Imbibitor Lune kind of stands out, at least in 1.x, as one of the top DPSs. Jingliu probably being a little bit better. Argenti's also really good. And that's about it as far as the 1.0 characters. Jingyuan had a resurgence with Sunday. So when looking at the 1.0 cast, I don't know. Imbibitor Lune seems to make a lot of sense because he hasn't received a lot of special treatment up till now for maybe a character that really helps him out, like Jingyuan had Sunday.
Here's the thing that I would have to say, as almost in a maybe just plain devil's advocate here, right? So
I'll go for it.
And to your point of bringing up Zila, I'll bring up Zila as well, kind of with this in a minute. But the first thing, obviously, is Imbibitor Lune. And to your exact point of them being a character that's not actually worth it, I actually think that's a reason that they're not going to put him on the Stellar Convergence. Let's look at things, right?
Okay, yeah.
You bring up someone like Luocha, and what happens soon afterwards? Jingliu gets a buff, Blade get a buff. Both, as you said so perfectly earlier, were absolutely cracked characters to put with Luocha. Next, we have Ruan Mei. And Ruan Mei, when she first
Still
released,
valuable.
was okay, but then, as soon as we had characters like our break effect characters, Boothill, Firefly, Linksha, and then obviously you have some other characters that are focusing in that idea with the break effect, obviously Rappa and more, but the idea started to become more useful. Never mind also just Rome is just an extremely strong character. So I'd actually have to say that they are actually putting strong characters alongside of these characters in the Stellar Convergence, at least for what we've seen so far. Maybe I get proven dead wrong. But if you noticed, they chose Luocha and Ruan Mei, which means we skipped over people like Zila, Jingyuan. You know what I mean? And
right.
The reason why they probably didn't choose Kafka, Blade, and Silverwolf was probably because these buffs were coming to those specific characters. Because they knew that people were going to pull them. Or maybe because they knew they want to keep these characters relevant, right? I mean, you think about these three units, there's somebody that has been a part of the core family, if you will, of Star Rail, to the point where they might want to keep them as strong units and playable units into the end game. So,
like as much as I love Zila, she's not like a poster girl for Star Rail, much like Kafka is. Kafka, like people who don't play Star Rail could see Kafka and be like, "Oh, is it that Star Rail game?" Or like March 7th. Like you said, kind of the poster children of the game, like the core family. That's definitely, you see that. Zila kind of had that, I guess, because she had all the drip marketing and the, the advertising, because she was the first limited character. But when you think of Star Rail, I don't know, I don't think of Zila, even though she's like one of my favorite characters in the game. It really is actually Kafka, Silverwolf is a big one, so I think I would have to agree with that. And then you've also got other characters like I did mention Topaz being kind of like somewhat kind of like on an island
Topaz
on
is
her
one I
own,
could see
and
on
up
there,
until
yeah.
Phainon. And now if she was on here, Phainon havers that don't have Topaz would be like, ooh, Topaz is on here. I'm gonna grab that because Topaz is really good with Phainon. And so that's a reason for someone to do that. And then for the people who don't have Phainon, it's an easy skip. Like, oh, I'm not gonna buy her from here because I don't have Phainon. So it's a very definitive answer.
Yeah, no, I would have to agree. It's the exact, I was going to say, Topaz, exactly as you said, could be that kind of definitive answer for you. And we don't have a DPS on here yet, so I could see someone like Argenti being on here. And
True.
because I don't necessarily think that Argenti is a character like Acheron or something like that that has still been kind of maybe a strong unit. Now, BFR for me, they might throw Acheron on there because, once again, of strength
Can you
reasons.
imagine?
I still believe that
E2,
Argenti could
still
be really
want.
strong for units. Yeah, exactly, right? But I still think that, like, Argenti is still a pretty strong unit in certain scenarios when you use him. So I could actually still see him being on Stellar Convergence. And the same thing could be said of, our Acheron as well. So I think that there's, we talk about Kafka, right? Kind of being poster child, and why she wouldn't be on the Stellar Convergence as almost a free character at this point. Why not Black Swan? I'm a Kafka haver, wasn't able to get Black Swan on every single one of her reruns because of surrounding characters. I'm telling you that one little point I have right there on the top would be absolutely gone in a heart, in a heartbeat.
Yeah,
just gone.
especially with Kafka being buffed as well. People who have Kafka already really excited, but now are kind of starting to pinpoint Black Swan, or at least thinking about it because, like, wait, Kafka's getting buffed. I have her.
The
I don't
DOT
have Black
team,
Swan. Hold on a minute. I could build
has
something
been getting
here.
a lot of love.
I think Huohuo is
Locha?
still so good. Huohuo, I mean, obviously the DOT team
Aglaya?
for the longest time, but yeah, honestly, all of these Amphorius teams actually really like Huohuo because of the energy.
Never mind the fake characters, especially
she's
Saber. Saber
there
really
you go.
wants
Yeah,
her
yeah.
because of the energy use. It's just,
She's almost too good
so
to
helpful.
be here. Like, she's too much over the top to be like, if Stellar Convergence candidates are like within my two fingers here, not good enough. They are good enough because they're, like, kind of to your point, they're still useful, relevant, and powerful enough. So it's kind of like a window in the middle. But Huohuo is like actually above it. She's way too powerful still that she may not be on it.
Right. There's just too
but then
many
again, we have
instances
Ron May,
of
so I don't
things.
know.
Right. No. Yeah. Exactly. You have a character like Ron May. So, I mean, if I think the top candidates for me are Black Swan and Topaz. If I had to choose two, behind that is probably Argenti and Huohuo.
Yeah.
That's at least how I see.
And see, that it makes sense. See, for us, the common ground is definitely Topaz. Topaz does make a lot of sense. For me, though, my top two would be Topaz and Imbiber Lunae. That's just my opinion. So, yeah, I know. I think, regardless of my top two, I still do think Black Swan is a good candidate. Huohuo was maybe a little too powerful. Argenti does make sense. And that's the thing. A lot of them make sense, and that's why it's kind of hard to figure out, okay, well, what could they do? Because there's reasons for all of them.
Yep.
So it's hard to say. Maybe they want to put Jingliu on there. Hey, we're buffing Jingliu. We're gonna throw her on here. We want everyone to have Jingliu. Like,
that's true. Maybe they do that with any of the characters. That's a very good point. They could just, hey, we're buffing this character, and we kind of want everybody to have a buffed character because whatever reason, maybe the devs actually want to love us. I don't know. After getting too many of those bad relic pulls, I'm not really sure they do love me anymore. But that could be a very good point, though. That they actually do think something like that. That hey, we want everybody to have Jingliu. She's not a super pinpoint character like you're saying for a poster child.
I wouldn't complain. I'd pick her up. I mean, she's cool.
I'd look at another Eidolon for her. So that's at least looking at the Stellar Convergence. Our thoughts on looking at that. It's, once again, similar to what we did with Genshin, looking originally when they first were talking about the Chronicled Wish, that idea. We're kind of doing the same thing here. We only really have one. This is kind of like when we were looking at the Leeway Chronicled Wish for like so long and waiting for it forever.
Yeah.
We're not sure when this is going to happen, but this is going to kind of be our timestamp of, okay, this is what we thought initially. And then once it actually does come out, how close were we? I'm probably more interested to see that than I am even talking about it right now. So
yeah.
Besides that, though, looking outside of Stellar Convergence, we have some other things to talk about. And the other things that we need to talk about are some pre-release stuff. So if you guys don't want spoilers, we've still got another about 2 weeks left on this banner, and so we understand that not everyone is okay with looking at spoilers and understanding these types of things and wanting to do that. So this is a very long segment to tell you, spoiler warning, this is all about pre-release, this is all about not released information, so up to you guys if you guys stay for any longer. But now jumping right into what we have here, we have 3 brand new characters and a bunch of buffs coming to some certain old characters as well. And now looking at those few characters, we have Phainon, Saber, and Archer. Now this is not going to be a time period where we sit down and tell you everything to do with each of the characters.
It'd be way too long.
They would take way too long.
Have to be separate videos.
I don't think anybody would care enough, and honestly, I wouldn't either. So I think the biggest thing to keep in mind here is looking at Phainon very quickly. How he works is he's going to be using, basically trying to get everything he can. He doesn't actually have like an energy ultimate, so that could be helpful as well.
It's like
but he has,
isn't it?
Yeah, it's a very similar idea.
Something like that.
Exactly. Yeah. So you have to get like stacks of something to actually kind of get your ultimate, and you can hold over over the amount that you can actually use your ultimate, but you can do that. But as soon as you use your ultimate, then he goes into like this 1v4 situation. So he kicks everyone else off the field and then kind of goes on he increases his HP, his attack, he basically buffs all of his stats and just gets extremely strong. And just 1v4, like, I'm going to fight everything on by myself. And at that point in time, he's basically just spamming, he's got a counter in that state, he's got a bounce in that state as well. And when he exits that ultimate state, he also has like a big damage hit that he does as well.
The finishing blow, the fatality.
There you go, right. So,
I think when we did our actual pre-release on Phainon, one way I liked to think about him was that whenever he kind of goes into, kicking everyone else off the field, it felt a lot like when you fight Hule and you go solo, you pick your character that goes solo. I'm like, that's kind of what it feels like, maybe. So that'll be a lot of fun too. Like,
imagine just
hyper buffing him, and
I
then
want
he's
to
just
1v1 you, and and he's just like, well, I already.
Phainon's like, all right, I'm gonna drop a planet on you and call it a day.
Yeah, literally, he just pulls a Zhongli.
Zhongli could never.
There have been a lot of talks online with how his strength is. I mean, looking at him in the story, if you guys have been following this story at all, he's been a very integral part of Amphorius, and he's even gotten to a point where he's very lore-wise gotten to a very good amount of strength. And some people are remiss about that, considering his damage is not as good as it once was. So they was kind of shown to be, he's going to be pretty strong. A few nerfs happened, which we were expecting some buffs, and instead nerfs happened, made him even worse. And over time, over the upgrades, it has gotten slowly worse, and now there is no version 6 for him. Sucks to suck a little bit, not gonna lie. Okay. There's no version 5, and it's just kind of a very bad situation where we're at right now. But that being said, it's all Doom Post. If we go back in time, even Neuvillette was Doom Posted. I want everybody to remember that. Neuvillette, one of the better DPSs and best DPS at his time, was Doom Posted. So there's so many things to keep in mind with all this type of thing, is that still, I do not believe that he is going to be absolutely insane, and I purposefully think that looking at him, they purposely made him the way that he is. And without making him just a one-man army, because if you make him a one-man army, then everybody just has no reason to pull anything else.
It's almost not fun anymore. It's just kind of like I'm just doing the same thing. Like, I still want to be able to think and okay, before I use his ultimate, I got to make sure I got Treebeast E in there. I've got to make sure I've got my other characters' buffs going. Okay, have I used Sunday's skill and ultimate? I just to make sure I'm getting everything, and then it's still it's really fun to actually be able to use up all of the attacks in the burst, or his ultimate, and not just use his ultimate and instantly deal 1,000,000 damage or whatever, and it's just overkill. And you're like, man, I kind of wanted to use my 6 other attacks I still had,
Yeah, and that's kind of the biggest thing that they've been doing on purpose, is because he's actually, and a lot of people have been saying that it's been almost a problem, because a lot of those buffs that were like Sunday, Sparkler, or Bronya, or whatever, where you're constantly trying to bring someone back up and use them as action values and action advancements, it becomes a problem for that because action value goes down and you're at 0. It's just not a fun time. It's a lot of extra theory crafting TC stuff that is way beyond a lot of people's care. But I think the biggest thing with him is that there's just a lot of holes, and they thought they were going to be filled, and instead they were kind of made bigger. So I still am
Yeah.
going to be pulling for him. I think he'll
I'm
still be a
still
good
thinking about it
DPS. I think he's
myself.
going to be a good DPS. I still got Mighty, and he got he probably got Doom posted even worse. And I mean, when he came out, he was
Really?
still strong, and I still think he's strong. So I mean, I have
Yeah.
no problem with what's going on here. I think that they just had a level of he's going to become the next, like, I mean, I don't know why they thought he was going to be like the next Hashira or something, where bro was just going to absolutely just go crazy. So instead, he just kind of became another solid DPS, which I think was just a lower level than what they thought they were going to get. Another character we have, though, is Saber. So talking about other characters in another destruction unit, we have our Fate collab coming in. So I think the Fate fans are going to be a little bit more happy about that than others. But Saber's coming out, and Archer's going to come out. We've already talked about this, but Archer's free. That's kind of cool.
That's really cool. Like,
Archer's very
I'm
skill
excited
heavy.
for that.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
Archer's
I
skill
think
heavy,
Sparkle's
mono
supposed to be one
quantum.
of his. Is
Yeah,
that right? Like Sparkle's
yeah,
supposed to be one of
Sparkle
the
because of all
better
the extra
supports.
skill points you want to do, because he uses his skill points, but he uses like is enhanced is like he uses 2 skill points. So he adds like a certain amount of skill points. She adds a certain amount. So I think you can max out to 8 skill
Like
points.
yeah, that's crazy.
Silverwolf is getting this buff, and if you go back to Mono Quantum, now you have Silverwolf coming kind of back a little bit as well. So she can be thrown in this team from a better Mono Quantum team than maybe we had with someone like Zila or Qingchua. So that's something to keep in mind. Saber is just a really solid DPS. It looks like just really cool, really fun. I mean,
Dude,
plus
her
the animations always
animations
look
look
good.
so good. Like when I
Yep.
first saw like what her ultimate looks like, and how, like the I saw people like correlating it to what it looks like in the anime, and I'm like, okay, that's really cool. Like I never
Yeah.
watched Fate. I'm sorry, guys. I know it's bad, but when I saw the correlations, like, okay, that's cool. If I had watched it, yeah, no, that's like it looks so good. So I didn't even watch the Fate stuff, and it's on a watch list. Okay, I'll get there, but it looks so good. It borderline makes me want to pull just because of the animations, and oh, it looks good.
It looks really, really good. And speaking of something that was really, really good, we're going to go back to the other idea of some old characters that got buffed. So we have 4 characters that are of an older variety that got buffed, and we were kind of talked about this a little bit and kind of already spoiled it to previous people, but Kafka, Silverwolf, Blade, and Jingliu are going to be buffed as well. And there have been plenty of different things that have been going on with that and kind of talking about that. Once again, we won't go into depth on what that is exactly and going over the entire kit, but in a basic sense, at least for Jingliu, her attack has been switched over to HP. So those attack modifiers have been switched to HP. Also, just for the record, it supposedly looks like if you want to keep the original kits the way they are, you can do that. So if you don't want Jingliu to
Which
be
is
switched
nice.
to HP, you can keep her on the attack build, which, yeah, exactly, is very, very nice for them to
Yeah,
do.
because like the biggest thing about that is for Jingliu and Blade specifically is you're gonna have to completely change the relics if you want to actually use the buffed version. That to be slightly better, you're gonna have to completely redo your relics. And I know some
Thankfully,
people are gonna have some like god roll pieces, so it can be kind of tough to get, rid of that or past it.
thankfully, some of the relics and the actual sets, planar sets even, aren't like attack based or anything like that. So it's all just crit
Right.
and stuff like that. So thankfully that you won't have to worry
If you've
about.
got too much attack percent though, you're like, oh,
Yeah,
I
so
need to
that
like
does
get more crit or something.
kind of, yeah, throw it in. So your boots are probably going to be changing for her. Your rope is definitely going to be changing, but thankfully, at least for me, I got lucky and I actually have backup pieces that are really, really good for that. But I know that that does become a piece of contention for some people. But if you are looking ahead and getting ready for Jingliu, you're probably already for this change. You're probably already making those necessary changes if you haven't made them already. But I know Silverwolf and Kafka have also had some changes as well. What does that, in a very
I really
basic
like
look
their buffs.
like?
Yeah. No, okay, so like out of the 4, I think because I actually did look extensively into this just one day. I was really, really curious, and I actually really heavily compared the originals versus the buffed versions, and then kind of like, okay, who's getting the kind of biggest increase, if you will. So, in my opinion, after looking at the changes, I feel like Kafka is getting a ridiculous buff. Like, I think
Oh
out
yeah,
of the
for
four,
sure.
she's getting the biggest increase. Now, I think Jingliu is still more powerful than Kafka, just in nature. Jingliu's teams are just able to do more, and that's not Kafka's fault. Like, I think that's just a DOT thing. DOT needs help, and that's a different subject on a different day. But Kafka's buffs are kind of crazy. Like, basically, in short, she's got higher multipliers, so her damage will be higher. But you also have her follow-up attack can happen on any kind of attack from a teammate. It doesn't have to be that basic attack, so you don't have to think about that anymore. You can still just do what you need to do, get your buffs from other characters. If I need to use a skill over here, I can do that because Kafka will still follow up, and that's just really nice. Like, okay, so I don't have to think about that anymore. Awesome. And then I think she can actually do it twice per turn now instead of once per turn, which, if you're using Kafka in an Acheron team, which I know some people do, like the DOT Acheron team, I wouldn't recommend it, but I know some people do it. That's technically another stack for Acheron, because now Kafka's doing her follow-up twice per turn and not once per turn. That means more ultimates for Acheron, which is more damage. So that's really nice. So really overall, yeah, just more damage for the DOT itself, but also more triggers for it. It's really, really good, and I'm so excited to actually use it because I do actually have Kafka and Black Swan. So DOT was something, at least, especially around Black Swan's time when she was new, DOT was something I was using pretty heavily, and it worked really good on especially on things like Svarog, just because of the elements that he is. It just absolutely destroyed him. It also destroyed the meme boss. Literally, it's called the meme. And that thing hates DOT because DOT will really help you get your characters back, because it has that mechanic where it steals characters and then you can't use them, and DOT just like
Right.
instantly like turns that off basically. So yeah, I can't wait for Kafka's buff. And then the biggest thing with Silverwolf is really just that instead of being so single target focused with her ultimate for the defense shred, it's now hitting everything on the field. That alone is a
Is amazing.
really good, an amazing buff for Silverwolf, because now she can actually be viable over Pela for many other teams.
Doesn't
Because
she also have a
like with
defense shred
Acheron,
increase as well?
I think so. I don't remember because this was like a long time when it was more new, but I think the defense shred in her talent is slightly higher, so it's like a couple percent higher. So it's there, but really the AoE defense shred is huge because, like, let's say you were doing an Acheron team, pre Silverwolf buff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pela's just going to be better on paper. I know her defense rate is smaller, and it's really not by that much, to be honest. But it's still better because she's hitting all 5 enemies. And so, because Acheron is hitting all 5 of those enemies in that whatever lineup is, whatever fight that looks like, the damage is going to be so much higher because you're hitting 4 additionally defense shredded enemies. Whereas if you use Silverwolf, yeah, you're decreasing a little bit more defense on the one enemy, but the other 4 haven't been defense shredded at all. So really, your overall AoE damage is going to be less. That number in the top right is not going to look as high as if you used Pela. But now, with the Silverwolf buff, it will be higher. And it's not like a crazy amount, but this brings Silverwolf back into the question of being used. And on paper, now she is better than Pela. So that's just really cool.
Yeah, to actually kind of bring back an old character. I mean, each of these characters kind of bringing them back is kind of nice. And especially, I think Silverwolf kind of had the biggest fall off out of all of these characters. So it's very good to see that. And I
Yeah.
mean, touching on Blade really quick, his stuff basically just changed from he had a lot of attack and HP modifiers in his kit originally. Now that's just
Right.
all switched to HP. Also, honestly, they just redid his bonus abilities, which thank goodness because they were so bad before. The
Yeah.
first one, it's the same thing. You have the increase to your talent follow up, so you have that attack, but now you actually have some extra energy. And the second one, instead of that whole stupid like weakness broken thing and HP increase and all that, he gets basically a higher amount of healing from from any healing from an outside enemy, so he gets more HP from healing. Also, if he, after receiving healing, he gets 25% of that amount converted to the ultimate's tally of HP loss as well, which also is going to
Which
help
means
with
more
bigger damage
damage,
hits.
right? Yeah.
Exactly. So, and then at the end, you have like a bigger amount of a healing as well that comes from that. That third one is what you originally had, but now the third bonus ability is when Blade uses his ultimate, the total accumulated HP loss will be set to 50%. once again, just another big damage thing for his ultimate. So his bonus ability has definitely got a really big shoot back up. And obviously his original modifier is going from kind of dual stacking into attack and HP, just back to HP, actually just makes him a useful, viable character again.
Yeah, they all look really good. Very excited. I know you're excited for Jingliu. I know you have Jingliu. So that's something really
I'm
exciting
looking
to
at
look forward
Blade
to.
now.
For me, it's Kafka. And well, I know you have Kafka too.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't have Jingliu. So for me, it's really all on Kafka because I don't have Silver Wolf Blade or Jingliu. Regardless of that, though, really happy for the buffs really across the board. So it's very exciting. And also to know that Blade, you can lose your 50-50 now and actually get Blade if you put him in that pool of loss for your account. That's kind of cool knowing you can get that. So you can get his light cone in the shop thing. That's tied to the first thing we talked about with Star Rail. If you really wanted that, that's a separate topic. I'm not saying I recommend to do that, but it's nice knowing that you can, kind of a thing.
Yeah, there's just too many. I think there's a lot of good things coming up in the future. This has been for Star Rail. This week has been a little bit more of a look to the future, more or less, rather than kind of look at this past week of what's been going on. Obviously, Stellar Convergence talking about some new things. What could it possibly be? And then also looking at kind of the old, characters that are going to be buffed, as well as pre-release, looking at characters that haven't been quite released yet, but looking at the next few little while as well. Well, I think that's kind of everything we have to talk about in this specific video, talking about Genshin, talking about Star Rail, talking about really everything at this point. So it really kind of comes down to, I guess, really us just kind of, this is really it, This has been the new idea of what we wanted to do with our type of content, doing really bigger videos, following the idea of putting, the
This
joke has
is
always been
the
between us.
GachaCast.
Yeah, getting that idea, especially with both of us, we've always had the joke between us of putting the interact in Gacha interact and, putting more time and effort into being more of a podcast rather than just another information outlet, kind of being both. So,
and I would say that if you guys are looking forward to more content like this, do let us know in the comments, because we also already have something cooked up for next week. So stay tuned for that. We're not going to divulge that now, but got quite the surprise. So if you are looking forward to that, then do stay tuned, because that's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have a lot of fun with it. So we can't wait to show you guys what that is.
Hopefully everything is going to go well with that, and we're also going to have something out for you guys as well by that time period. Next week's going to be a little bit of a different GachaCast, so it's not really going to be maybe weekly information, but something just different. But, we also hope that with this type of content, it allows us to do something like this, or to do something in a similar fashion to it. So once again, without egging you guys on even more about that, go ahead and let us know down below if you guys enjoy the content. Please go ahead and like and subscribe. We do have a Discord as well, where we try to be in as much as physically possible, try to get to know our Discord a little bit more. Once again, jokingly, but putting that idea of interacting with you guys as much as we physically can. So,
and it's a blast,
we do take a big part of that too. Yeah, no, so whether you get to listen to maybe a little bit more high energy outside of videos, and also maybe a little bit more like ragey, that definitely happens in there
Vixen
as well.
screaming,
so,
that's crazy.
Yeah, I do get over the 2 decibel mark. It's kind of crazy. So anyway, besides that though, that's everything we have for this week, talking about Genshin and Star Rail. Thank you guys though for watching the video once again, and we'll see you guys in the next one.